And then I say, thank you all for getting through the rain, coming here today to learn about some Unity and project management. I see a couple familiar faces, so I'm going to let you know it's all the same. It's literally all the same. But I'll again go into who this is meant for, and it's always nice for a refresher, right? I added a little bit of, or I added an extra thing here you probably saw on the next slide. So I wanted to spend approximately 3.5 minutes talking about something real quick. That is, I never said who I am. So real quick, I just want to say out loud who I am, what I've done. I'm Justin Dela Cruz. Hi, nice to meet you. I started my stuff in gaming and game dev, working as quality assurance in Keyword Studios in Montreal. I tested a lot of games. Yes, I got paid to play Warframe for like 2 weeks, and then tell me if it sucked being a non-premium player. I told him it sucked. Anyway, so I got a good glimpse at game dev from a tester's side, and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And then I did civil engineering, and then I dropped out of civil engineering, and now I'm in computer science, and then I went and started it in LBCC, where I took a game design class. You probably saw my huge message in semester resources, but if not, check it out. I got a lot of intro to game dev and software engineering from my game design course in LBCC. Also brought me connections to a bunch of my friends and people that I've met in this GameCon, where I met people from other studios like Obsidian. And then after that, I was like, oh, let me try out this game making thing. So I've done a bunch of game jams over here. I've done GMTK, X-Place, Global Game Jam. I did that with Matt, the co-president, and the SGDA Jam last year. Those are all my roles and what I've done. And here's a picture of me and my friend DeChill at Anime Expo. It's a little blurry, but I'm in agony right there.
What you did?
I didn't do it, the world did. I was in turmoil. I was in absolute turmoil, man. My best friend, gone dead. Okay, so just a quick look. Here's what we're going to cover regarding Unity. So I'm going to say right now, technically there's a lot of things about Unity, and it does require a lot of self-studying and a lot of work. But if you were trying to go into a specific role for working with a game team in Unity, or any team that's using Unity for that matter, this will give you a quick surface level look so that you can sort of see and decide which part of Unity you want to dedicate yourself to. Because to be honest, to do the whole thing by yourself, it's a lot, it requires a lot of time and a lot of specialization. A lot of learning. So we're going to cover all this stuff in green in full, everything in yellow. I'm going to touch on it a little bit, and then if you want to hear more about it technically, you have to come to the next workshop after that. And the stuff in red, they are very important, but I'm not going to talk about them because then it's just coder mode. And they're the table contents. And I have this table here just to let you know, or just to show to you that these slides, I'm going to post them everywhere as much as I can. They are intended for you to go back to it and reference them if you would like. So table of contents. Next, so what is this and who's this for? This is just an intro to making games in general, and I'm just showing it off in the perspective of Unity. But honestly, all the topics that are covered here, they're probably familiar, and they do relate to Godot and other engines. Some stuff may be specific and different, but that's just what makes each engine different from each other. Who's it for? My guys, all you guys. Give yourself a hand. You guys made it through the rain. Honestly, it sounded like... Seriously, it was like, the rain was like awful earlier. I was like wondering if no one was coming in. But anyway, so who's this for? This workshop in particular, like I said, surface level, if you just want to get to know Unity and get to know the basics in game development. Beginners and refreshers and specific roles. Here's the agenda. Here's going to be how to get Unity, downloading actually ignore that second line, but then the rest of that there. So how do we get Unity? You go and get the Unity Hub. From there, you can start making your projects. I can actually pull it up for you guys, Unity Hub. But it's pretty simple. You just go on to that link or the link I sent in the Discord and semester resources. And from there, you can just pick up the Unity Hub and start setting up a project. Where did you go? Boom. It looks like this. Over here, you can see all the projects you've done or that you want to make. You can have a new project here. They give you a bunch of like tutorials and layouts that you want to mess around with so you can get a feel for Unity. You can also choose the version and see which versions of Unity you have installed. All that good stuff. Everything Unity related happens in there. So that is particular to Unity. If you're doing anything like Godot, I believe Godot is just a launcher by itself. And yeah, it's all wrapped together nicely. So you just get the Unity Hub, you make a project, choose a version, and you start. That's it. So everything I say in this is interchangeable with many things in other game engines. So if I say scene, just think of it as like a level or the room that you're in or a chapter. It's just like one container of everything that you're doing. And a game object is literally anything. It's that table with no programs or no scripts, or Jake with a couple scripts and like a component that says he's... Anyway, you get what I mean. So there's two basic things. I'm just breaking it down to two very basic things. Your table and the pieces on your table. Here's what your game is going to look like, right? So like I said, you have your scene with your players and your anything else in your world. And from start to finish, this is what making a game would look like. You make the project. I showed you in Unity Hub. You make a level. You do whatever you want in the level. You make the player. This is a very abridged version of what's happening in making a game over here. And then by the end of it, you make your build. And your game is ready to play. You got a .exe, and you double-click that, and you say, oh my god, I'm playing the game. It's pretty cool. So I apologize if I'm going kind of quick on this, because I have to cover 2 workshops. But if you have any questions, please feel free to message us or talk to me after the workshop. I'm completely open to all your questions, and I love talking about this stuff. I'm also a full coffee in, and I drank it in like 3 seconds, so I'm like really hyped up right now. Here we have the editor. I'll just show you the slides here for now, but I will bring it up in a second. Actually, because it takes a while, I'm going to open a project right now. Yeah, so your main thing in Unity is the editor. It has many different things. I'll pull up a picture right now. Yeah, so your main thing in Unity is you have all these tools and these perspectives available to you. Over here, you've got your folder for your assets. This is indicative of the actual folder in your computer. Anything you want to add into the game goes straight to this folder. Here's every object in your game. Here's the actual scene. And then this is what you're looking at. This is your beautiful product over here. And everything that you click on in the hierarchy or in the game, we have all the information for it right here. Forgot to mention, Unity takes a notoriously long time to open. It is still trying to open right now. So that blue square is supposed to signal me showing you Unity, but my boy's not ready. So I'll bring it up in a little bit. So there's 2 different perspectives. Unity by itself is a 3D engine, but in order for it to run 2D games, you do have to set it in the 2D perspective. Of course, this does make for like some pretty cool situations where you can put 3D objects in a 2D perspective, because technically your 2D perspective or your 2D setup is in a 3D space. So by default, Unity is in 3D. But for the most part, in any game engine that you work in, you are just going to be given a space depending on the engine. So Godot and Unity are 3D. Don't have any 2D ones off the top of my head. Maybe Game Maker. Someone want to help me with that? Game Maker Studio, yeah, that's... Some of them come in 2D, some of them come in 3D. They all have their different specializations, but for the most part, you need to see your game in the first place. Next, we have the hierarchy. Just like Godot, there is a section that shows you all your items in your game. So I made like a little example to show off everything that this little menu is capable of. You have your object, and any object that goes inside of that, that is a child object. So it kind of just like trickles down. There's shorter words over here, but for the most part, everything in your game is in the hierarchy. Hey, all right. So as I was saying, this is what your Unity is going to look like. So like I said, there is your editor over here, or your hierarchy over here. This is where you keep all your objects and items, and anything you click on it, it does have the scripts and objects that you apply to it. right? So this one, for example, this is just for making like a mouse click on the screen. Top secret project. No one say anything about this project on your way out. I will, just kidding. You can kind of see here that in this game, I have this little object over here, and it has a component over here that decides what it's doing. Oh, see that red line over there is my mouse, right? And I have it set to clicking on things that are interactable, but that is a topic for another time. This is just to show off that whatever you drag into the editor, you can interact with directly in the game. This cube here is a baby. What makes a baby? This cube, this collider, and it has all this information over there. So any of you looking to specialize in specifically like just modeling, you would know something specific, or you would want to learn something specific towards specific components or specific objects for bringing your model in. I believe for Blender, they have their own way of bringing in their own models. You can either make it like an STL file. What's up here? And he has something to say.
Fill with Blender.
Oh, he can fill with, well, yes.
It's FBX files, or you can just drag them from .blend for Blender files. Usually, just FBX files for Unity works the best. You can also do OBJ files. STL is like for 3D printers.
Says the non-3D guy.
Wait, does STL work Unity?
See, I think I did it once.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's just you put a 3D file. So the point is, again, if you're here to get a taste of Unity and you want to specialize in something specific, there's many different things you can do. I know right now in the game industry, from what I've heard as of a year ago, tech artists or the role of a tech artist is pretty lucrative right now. So if you do know how to make a 3D object, bring it into Unity or any engine, and you're able to fiddle with all this stuff on the right so the programmers can think about programming, you got a job right there. So 3D or just bringing in assets is one example of a specialization in Unity. All right, so that's a hierarchy. Transform tools, you can go ahead and check this out in Unity for yourself when you get a chance, but it's pretty much this. I can rotate this guy. Ooh, I can up, right, I don't know my cardinal directions. Big. Yeah, so the transform options are pretty intuitive. This does apply to other 3D editors as well. I mainly know it from Blender, but it does apply, or these transform controls also apply there as well. Big cube. So just to show you, that's how you manipulate all the objects in your game. There's all the settings right here, or all the available options you have right there. And I made this cool graphic to show you that even though there are a specific button for each, honestly, you could just use the same thing. I think it's by preference there, whichever one you want to work with. Boom. And the inspector. Honestly, this is yellow because the amount of things you can do with one object is almost infinite, in my opinion. Like, this one player object is already a rigid body, which just gives it physics. It has a script to set it to be like a 2D platformer, capsule for collision. It has a sprite renderer. You kind of get the gist from here. Each object you can customize and do whatever you want with it to make it what you want for your game. So that's why it is yellow. And blue square says I show it off. If I go to the baby, I'll show you the baby has a cube, a mesh filter, has a collider, and has a script that tells it it is an interactable baby. Please don't ask what the baby is about. Next is your project and assets folder. Like I told you before, everything that exists in your project is in this folder. You are allowed to organize it however you want. You can have a general scripts folder or a general prefabs folder, or you can have a this person folder or a that person folder. Any way you want to organize it for your team, it's all good to go. At that point, it's just by preference and how you guys work together. But to point out a Unity-specific thing, there are a number of folders that are specially named and reserved for Unity. And so over here we have all the names. And if you would like to, if you want to open up the slides and see more information about it, this picture is clickable. You click on it, boom, it takes you to the Unity documentation and gives you a lot more information on what those specific folders do. So as it says over here, name it whatever you like, do whatever you like to organize it however you like. It is your project. I didn't remove this. I was going to because of a past workshop, but I still put it up here, or I left it up here for a very quick reason, and it's that if you are aiming to do a 2D project, Unity has a separate package directly for making sprite sheets and tile maps, or supporting sprite sheets and making tile maps for just making some easy levels. You can kind of paint it out from there, depending on whatever you select over here. And scenes, honestly, are probably really, really important for not just Unity, but for all game dev, right? After all, every game we played is probably level 1, level 2, or starting room, secret room number 1. This one's a bit more abstract in where you start making a sort of like sequence or setup of how you want to make your levels or how you want to make your scene transitions. And what you do with scenes is pretty flexible. In a very simple sense, you can do level 1, level 2, level 3, but like what Jake and I were doing another day was we can use another scene as a transition scene. You guys ever played a game and it's like, you guys ever played Budokai Tenkaichi 3, where whenever you start up a level, you got Vegeta just doing like push-ups, and the more you mash X, right, it starts doing more push-ups, right? No? Yes, no? Please, I don't want to be unk. Someone say you know what I'm talking about. Well, think of it this way. When you're in the main menu and you want to go to the main game after choosing your characters, the game or the developers put up an extra scene that is interactable, and it's just like a curtain. It acts as a curtain so that all the ugly stuff in the back starts happening, you know, loading in other objects and stuff. That is the cool things you can do with scenes. So, to reiterate, base level, you make level 1, 2, and 3, just like Mario. Highest level, theater. Different curtains, sliding out different things. You are making up your own show. Here is an actual working example of working with transitions or working with different scenes. For that game jam I mentioned earlier, we originally had 15 levels planned, and I was like, we only get 4 days. You can have 7, 6 or 7. I did not mean that. And see over here, I had everyone follow this map, where we had the main menu scene is when you open the game, a transition scene that goes in between each transition to each level, credits, and they all go back to the main. This is just to show off the gameplay loop of the entire game. So like whenever a player intends to play through the entirety of your game, this is to make sure that they have a map where you can visualize a map of where they're going through in the game, and that you make sure they don't fall out of bounds or to a scene that doesn't exist. It's to sort of get everyone on the same page about what's happening in your game. I should not be holding this. Yeah, so game objects, arguably the most important thing in your game. It is literally anything in your game. It can be entities, you know, it can be Jake walking around. Walk forward for me real quick. All right, so Jake is an object, and I mean that lovingly. Jake is an object. He's got, jump for me real quick. My boy, jump for me real quick. My boy's got rigid body physics, right? Walk forward towards me. He's got a controller component, right? How tall are you?
5'6".
He's got a script that determines his height, right? And then if I turn the controller to the right, to the right again, I gotta fix my code. Forward. Brother, all right. But you get the idea, right? Game objects can be whatever you set it to, right? So I already, you know, again, lovingly, I broke down the concept of Jake as, hello guys. I broke down the concept of Jake as a game object itself. Now the same thing is if I wanted to have a table, this game object here, right, is just spawn a game object, set the mesh collider, and then set the 3D model to a table that someone made. And then what properties can I give it? Physics collider. And now it has physics. So, very simple concept, but it does apply to everything you do in game dev. So it really is just Roblox editor. If you want to put it in or if I want to put it into a more widely known scene, you kind of have your toolbox and you pick up a Lego piece and you make it whatever you want. Sorry, fix the camera. On a higher level that I won't talk about too much, managers and prefabs, we could talk about those in the next workshop. But if you want to determine how things are running in your game, that could be another object that is just invisible. So this is a Unity workshop, or this is a Unity and Project Manager workshop. So if I want to determine how this is going, make an object called Workshop Manager, and it just determines everything that's happening. And that's on a more higher level sense. And that's that in a nutshell. But there is nothing wrong with how many you put into a scene, so long as you are optimal about it. It doesn't mean put like 30,000 trees in the same level though. That's an engineering question. What we got next? Also Unity, what's up man? Unity specifically, and I believe Godot does this as well, gives you a lot of templates for making some really basic objects. You got 2D objects, sprites, physics, tile map, 3D objects, cube, the other 4 cardinal shapes, I don't remember. I guess we're making circles now. And everything else you can think of. UI, video, audio, all that good stuff. Unity helps you out, and same with Godot. When you open up your node maps or whatever, not node maps, when you start making nodes, they have a lot of options for templates on what you want to make. All right, next thing we have is, actually I think I did this example with Jake already. You guys remember the Jake example from like 2 minutes ago? Those are all components. Everything that I applied to Jake to make Jake, that is a component. But for the sake of the recording, just to let you know, components are everything that make your object. And from there, it just gets bigger and bigger how much you put into an object. Just so you know. For the sake of not repeating myself. As it says on the slide here, where it's basic is you just go around, look at all the objects you want to play with, and just seeing what they are and what makes them. The advanced part is when you want to start defining something different. So if you're taking more of an angle for engineering anything in the game, so like gameplay programming or something other than gameplay programming, we want to start making scripts and stuff. That's the more advanced part, and that's what the next workshop would be about. But like I said, if you're just here to specialize in something specific, like art or any other type of media or UI, it's just a matter of opening up any editor that you got and just clicking around and messing around with the stuff on there. Leave the coding to the programmers or learn coding yourself. It is really up to you how much you want to put yourself into this engine, and any game engine for that matter. Or you get RPG Maker XP. Now, I think that one's also pretty... Do you use RPG Maker?
Yeah.
Is it hard?
Not really.
Well, he said, RPG Maker is not hard. Last thing I want to show off, and there is a blue square there, so I'll bring this up. Last thing I want to show off is when you are done with your game, right? How do you even start playing it? Easy. You make a build for it. Now, I'm pretty sure every one of you here has clicked on an executable file. To open up a game, to open up a project, to open up anything. When you're done with your game, usually in these editors, they have a way to build the game so you can start playing it. And you might have heard some drama about Unity and building, but I don't think we're all going to reach 50 million anytime soon anyway, right? Right? I hope you guys do, but... All right, man. Well, anyway, the cool thing about Unity is that it gives you a lot of options for which platforms you want to build to. You got Linux, Mac, Windows. The servers specifically, if you're making dedicated servers, you got mobile apps, PS4, really? You got web. So if you guys are making like web games on itch.io, there's a version to set up a web build. I think it's pretty cool too, because like if you can open a game and it's just on a browser, and it takes like less than 1 click to start playing the game. That's pretty cool. As opposed to going to itch, downloading the game, unzipping the file, double-clicking the .exe, play your game. That's like 4 clicks, right? So, for you guys with web games or web gameable ideas, I give that to you.
I heard someone made like Super Monkey Ball on a website, if I recall.
Oh, yeah. Remade the entirety of Super Monkey Ball on browser. Yeah.
Impressive.
So who's putting Ocarina of Time on browser and getting sued to the ground by Nintendo? I look forward. I will also get arrested for that.
Launch party's gonna be exciting.
Sure is. It's like, woo, launch party, let's go. All right. So just showing off the build menu one more time. There it is. You've got a lot of options for what you want to build to. Matt, real quick. Can Godot do that too?
What?
Build for different platforms?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was like templates. Like to export the templates.
All right. The Godot Masters have spoken. You can do other platforms with Godot. Pretty cool. Yeah, but obviously, when you're done making your game, you have to have an endpoint, right? You got to have a way that you're going to get to actually playing and distributing your game. So, big block of text. You can look at that on your own one day, someday. Quick screenshot that I showed off. I think that's the old menu. We're at the new menu now. Now, here we are at the end, and I want to ask you guys, can we cover everything?
Yeah!
Really?
Yeah.
All right, we in here for like the next 12 hours. All right, let's get started. So starting with C#. Now, realistically, in 1 hour or even 2 hours of a club session, I am not a full course, Neil. I am not a full course of a school class. I can't cover everything, to be honest. But that is why in the Discord, I sent down in the semester resources channel, I put down a ton of links to help you get started on just breaking into making games. You'll see a lot of links in YouTube playlists. Actually, let me pull it up real quick. Big block of things up here, right? Just showing it off. You need the Unity and Unity Hub up here. You want to get assets right here. I forgot to mention, if you want to go straight into making a game and you want to prototype something out, there are plenty of free assets out there, just for the sake of prototyping. And then you can kind of polish or commission your own assets and everything on your own later on. But if you need something as placeholder, or you genuinely just want to make the game and not worry about making anything, so you want to go pure engineer, right? Here's a couple assets that I got from a professor a while ago. You have the Unity Asset Store, opengameart.org, and itch also has a ton of free assets that you could look into. Yeah, if you're looking to specialize in making the game itself, you got those. And surface level about Unity, I put down a playlist from, my bad, it's this one. Surface level, if you want to play around with Unity and make a game on there real quick, I put a Brackeys Beginner Unity Tutorials playlist right here. That was a mouthful to say. And this really cool video I found on just making buttons. There's a lot that goes into making one button in Unity. I believe that applies to other engines too. Yeah, there's a full video on there just touching on that. Of course, I got more links down there. The rest of that is for the second workshop. So give me 1 second. Back to this. Realistically, can I cover everything in Unity in one go? No, because you can already see that this graph right here is just for a player. Just a game with a single player. My bad, that's a single player, right? A lot goes into one player. A lot can go into the 2D tile map. A lot can go into a non-player entity. And this is all part of making a game. This whole graph here is just to show you that making a game is pretty much making software. It is complex. There's a lot that goes to it. And if you can do it all by yourself, that's just more time on your plate. But if you get a team and you guys specialize for different roles, you can break that down over and over and over. Just be like, hey, you work on player. You work on box collider. You work on NPC. You work on collectible coin. You can start breaking things up. and managing how everything goes, then making a game and any piece of software, and any piece of software for that matter, is a very approachable thing to do, even at your current level, whether you're brand new or you're refreshing or you already know how to do all this stuff. Also to ask for help. And I think that's it for the Unity shop. Next week, I think we have a break in the middle of the week because I think midterms are starting. Raise your hands real quick. How many of you have midterms next week? Well, I get a midterm like every week, but yeah. So just to show off, the next workshop for Unity is going to cover some general coding and scripting layout and practices, covering all the stuff that you need to make your own scripts, and then touching on managers again, and adding more custom features or components to all of your objects, and everything on this slide. Table of contents for next week. Thank you for this first part. I'll take some questions now, starting with you. Now for Matt's favorite workshop, project management. So I want a quick raise of hands. Who's taken CECS 343? 343, Intro to Software Engineering. Cool. Now, another raise of hands. Who is currently taking Senior Project 491? Just letting you know, later on in your curriculum, when you take 343 or 491, although the class just kind of goes away because it's literally just sitting to guys talking for like 2 hours straight, I kind of compiled all the actual important stuff in here, not to put down the professor's words and content, right? But to us right now, listen, you and me, we are all students, right? To what matters right now for making games is in this shop. That's where it's at. That's where it's at. So, it might get a little boring when I start talking about school stuff, but I promise you it's useful. Boom. All right. So, disclaimer, half of this is written by the previous vice president. So I'm going to abridge most of what she said, because I genuinely can't remember what she said for most of these slides. But they looked important enough anyway. Starting with this quote. 3 things that are important to making a game: not dying, shipping, making money, that order. That much is true for any project, not just games, but for any software where you're working with deadlines and you're working to deliver for your stakeholders, or you're submitting to a game jam. Get some sleep, don't die. Those are 3 very important things, right? We go next. What is leadership? So, real quick, let me look at this. Responsibility, accountability, connection, solving disputes. These slides are up if you want to take a look at it anyway. Wait a minute. If you want to take a look at it anyway. So I am just skimming through this because it's a lot of words, but I have a lot of things to say outside of the slides for this. So, going back, right? So, how many of you here are going to be leading a team for your game jam projects? Got 1, 2, 3, 4 leaders. How many of you are working solo? How many of you are just going to be listening to someone and doing your best at what you do to make a project? All right, so it's all encompassing. All right, cool. So, what I say now does apply to every project you ever work on, and that is if you stay, it's in the title, if you stay responsible and accountable, and for those of you in a team, you stay connected and honestly cool with your teammates, you have the recipe, or you have the ingredients for the recipe for success. And what I mean by that is, honestly, if you get into a team, and your team's full of people you don't like, or rather you work with them and vibe with them for the first week, but then find out they're not really like capable of doing much work in the long term. Several different things in the middle, right? Like making these projects and getting teams, they become chaos when they're not done right. And what is right is a very ambiguous thing. So some of the core things to follow when making a team or making a project solo is you have to stay responsible, stay on top of things, right? If you have a deadline for something, or if you set a deadline, you should be responsible in telling yourself, I can make this deadline or I can't. And you gotta be accountable, right? So if you get a task or if you tell yourself, I'm gonna get the player movement done by next week, you have to be accountable for that and you have to adapt to that. That doesn't mean, hey, if someone can't make like this certain feature in a week, that's no reason for reprimand, that's no reason for saying they're not a good teammate. That just means you need to adapt. You need to adapt and you need to rework your guys' approach to make sure that everyone who can and is able to do something can do it at a reasonable pace, right? My short term does not work. Yeah, connection. Oh, all right. I might talk about that one a little bit. Let me pull up something. I show off these guys. And then, for those of you who've already seen this workshop, this is like the 80th time you see me pull this up. So congratulations. We got a ton of people in this team, right? And I'm gonna tell you right now, it was not easy working with that many people. Like, to the point where I only just talked to people and I stayed up like 22 hours out of the day. Because everyone has different schedules, everyone has different times. Back to like responsibility and accountability, the way that I personally made this work was to make sure that everyone that wanted to work in this project wasn't really gate kept out or anything for their skill or lack thereof. Rather, I went through interviews with everyone to make sure I knew what they all wanted to do. Adam initially was like, I want to be a programmer. I want to lead the whole project. I want to be the guy on top of Flag. And I was like, all right, realistically, can you code? And he's like, nah. And I'm like, what do you want? I'm not asking what you want to be out of this project. I'm asking, what do you want out of this project? And the guy was honest with me, and he said, I want to design the levels. And I'm like, all right, you design the levels, let me show off this guy's work. My guy made the levels. These are all the levels. He worked on these, right? He got a lot of scrutiny and a lot of play testing and everything, but believe it or not, this guy had fun. This guy had so much fun working on it, and that was because we kept him in a situation, we kept him in a role that he wanted to do, that he liked doing, and for that he stayed responsible and accountable for his actions in his tasks for the part of the game. And what I said for him applies to everyone else here. Everyone had their own roles. Oh, that's the next part of the workshop. But just letting you know, you build a team and you make sure that everyone likes where they want to be and can do what they want to do. And it all aligns with the scope of the project through compromise, through strict boundaries, through whatever you need. If you get happy team members, you got a happy workforce, happy teammates, like I said that already, and then you comfortably get through your game. It's never going to be the most comfortable thing, right? There's going to be disputes. Next slide. There's going to be some people that just straight up don't want to work, but say they are. Happens, right? But those problems can be solved by just genuinely sitting down and talking it out and being like, hey, you haven't done anything in a while. Don't say it like that. Don't say it like that. Hey, notice things aren't going so well. What can we do? Find compromise. And the next slide's over there that I was talking about. The next slide I was talking about too was solving disputes. Most of the time, we all want to get together and make our grand epic game. But then we're all different people. We all have different ideas. You know, what if Jake wants to make What if Matt wants to make a Hollow Knight 2? What if I want to make, I don't know, Sudoku? Oh, that was a terrible example. I got nothing cool. I'm not on, I swear. What if Jomar wants to make Final Fantasy VII, right? What if Jomar wants to make Last Adventure the 7th? Don't. You know, like when we all get into a group, oh my God, we all have different ideas. What do we even want to make, right? How do we get together? How do I make this project without thinking these guys won't listen to me, I want to make the next Call of Duty. I want to get rid of Call of Duty. Black Ops 7 was not needed. You know, I already bought the 6th one before. You know what I mean? Like, what if you didn't want to make something, but then everyone else wanted to make that thing, right? Solving disputes. Like I said before, you take a sit down and be like, hey man, what's wrong? You know, like, I want to make this game, but you want to make that. Oh, I can't do this for that long. I want to make this game, you want to make that. I want to do this, you want to do that. How do we even like get on the same page, right? And that's the thing that kind of topples like all projects and teams, right? Is just you guys fail from the start if you all can't agree with each other. You know, making a team is not only just making a team, right? The corporate world might beg to differ, but making a team isn't just making a team. You know, like you're gonna be sticking with these people for an indeterminate amount of time, so you need to be able to, you know, be friendly, be cool, be able to talk things out with these people. You know, like first time Matt and I became like co-presidents of this club, I beefed with him for a little bit, but then I got into my bit of a shit now. But then we called in the car. I was like, hey man, listen, I'm not happy about this thing, you know. And we sat in not the lobby, no. We sat in the parking lot for like a good hour and a half. And I'm not gonna lie, I trust this guy with my life at this point. Like, we know how to hash things out. sorry. But Matt's my guy, because every problem we have, we sit down, we hash it out, we talk it out. And if it came to making a game, I'd have him in a team again, right? Like, you want to work with people that you can genuinely be that cool with, you know? In a very realistic sense, when you get into like any job or any project or any team of that matter, there's like a non-negative chance that you're not going to like the person you're working with, right? But that doesn't mean you have to go on the whole way and not like them. You got to work together. You got to learn how to adapt. If this person works this way, I'll work to how you work. If I want someone to understand how I speak about things and how I articulate the things I'm talking about from my role, by the way, this is like a big thing between like artists/designers and programmers, right? You know, you got one end speaking, hey, here's my 3D model. The rigging, my code won't work with this animation, blah, 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 blah. And it's a back and forth, right? There's like a discrepancy there. So if any of you are like leading projects, a lot of the time, if you wanted to program and you're a project manager, oh, good luck, man. You're not gonna do that. Or you're not gonna have a lot of time to do that. You need to be able to kind of speak in between and be translator and like mediator between all the different roles in your groups. Now, if you're working solo, awesome. It's just you, man. You talk to yourself. Work on it yourself. You know, you got like a notepad or something. But that's not capitalized. Whatever. But if you are working in a team, as a project manager, and the person who like is designated to lead all operations in the team, you have to be inclusive and accepting of everyone. And I'm not saying that just to say that. Like, you should include everyone's ideas and take into account. You sit down and be like, A wants B and B wants C and C wants D, right? Like, it gets all confusing when you try to put all these different shapes into your little shape box. But if you can like sort of organize it and figure out how to find compromises and solve disputes, people are fighting mid-project. If you gain the skill, and honestly, it's like strong social/people skills. Like, at some point, you're gonna have to learn how to do it. So I'd like to say out loud, get some social skills and get some adaptability and responsibility for working in interpersonal teams. Again, not 343. Senior project, at least for computer scientists and whatever. I think, actually, Garrett. Okay, for like art, like final projects, whatever branch of art you're in, do you have like a collaborative senior project?
So if you apply to the BFA as animation, you can do an animated film for your last year.
Right, but is it like collaborative?
Yeah,
like,
it's collaborative, yeah.
Right, so these schools, man, they just make us like work with people. I'm just kidding. But yeah, in some sense, we're in this school and we're going to graduate at some point. You're going to have to work with other people. And so you would do best to come in with the skills to be adaptable to whoever you're working with. And vice versa, if you're leading a bunch of people, you would do best to know how to mediate between people and make sure everyone is in on it. Everything I talked about was probably just all these slides without me actually showing it. My bad. Yeah. Oh, there's how you make a project. That's how you make a project, right? Those are all the steps to it. But everything I talked about right now is just more of like the people stuff. Again, this is a workshop about project management. We want to make sure that when you're managing a project, it's managed. You know, it's literally in the name. You know, we can just simply say, hey, here's how I make a game. Here's how I make an idea. You know, how do you manage it? A, B, C, D, steps 1 through 5. It looks like that, right? On paper, it looks like that. But people aren't that simple, right? A lot of complex things between people. So if you know how to navigate working with a team, it's not just a game. You can work on whatever you want. This is just a step-by-step to make the game. I swear to you, I'm not touching my laptop, but like it just changes for some reason. So there's that whole thing about motivation, like how do you get people to work on projects with you and all agree? There's that, right? Top line, and I'm only going to talk about this line, everyone has a right to enjoy the game they work on. Unless you're on salary. At that point, you're just getting paid for it. So if you're getting paid, as long as the work is done, right? That's a whole other thing. I'm being cynical about that. But it's pretty much true for, especially for us, a lot of us right now want to make a name for ourselves in self-projects, personal projects. You got to do what actually motivates you, you know? You got to actually work on something you enjoy. I know Matt for sure is not going to work on a project he doesn't like, right? Now Kieran, Jake, the whole officer board, we don't really want to sit with a project that we don't like, right? And so we find compromise to work on these projects so that they actually get done. Dude, last launch day, Matt and Garrett made a Hollow Knight clone. That was the most fun I had. That was the most fun I had. That was pretty cool. And that's because they both really like Hollow Knight, right? Imagine if Matt didn't like Hollow Knight. Awful. Just kidding. I got this whole slide on brainstorming. I'd say it's a little preferential and outdated, especially for this like last part right here, right? It's preferential and outdated, but it is kind of important. And on the same note of working together, connection, and adaptability. You know, you can all work together and come up with ideas. Cool. There are different ways to do it. One example. This isn't the end all be all, but one example that me and my team of all those people did together was how did we decide on what game to make? Big ass board. Big butt board. Right? Everyone put down 3 ideas. We take anonymous votes, and then it's a battle royale from which idea from there. Right? This is how we work. This is how we adapted to deciding what we do between 13 people. Everyone had a say. Genuinely. Everyone had a say. There are a couple funny ideas. So don't look too hard into it, but if you want, look at it on your own. Yeah, and then I talked earlier about why have roles, right? So it goes back to the Unity workshop. If you're specializing in anything, right? If you came to this workshop to only learn how to use Unity or how to use a game engine without ever coding, that's not wrong. That is a role. You are either a designer or an artist or anything that is non-programming. That is why we have roles. Honestly, again, if you're doing solo, you are brave. I'm sorry. If you're going solo, you're making a game, and you want it to be a full-scale thing, that's a lot of things to do. I've sat on a sprite for like 8 hours, and that's more time I spent on that sprite than making the code for the game, where it's just a guy walking left and right, right? So that's why roles are pretty important if you're working in a specific team. You know, you're all equal in a sense of the team, but at the same time, it does help to forego some responsibility and set some boundary to your specific profession so that you can work best to what you want to do. I'm not about to tell the artist how I think their art should look. I'd be on the ground dead if I did that. And if an artist told me how I have to program, I'll be like, all right, so what's a compiler? What is 2,678 in binary? All right, go for it, man. All right, so roles are important. And here's a big chart that I made, right? If I go back to the Miro board that I had over here, you can see everyone had their roles, and that's how it all went. I never touched any of the programming. As much as I wanted to, as much as I tried, there were people here who the only thing they've seen is programming, and now we have really good movement, right? If I promise you, if I sat in there and was like, I can do it, and then I had to step out every couple minutes to make sure everyone else here is like working properly together, this game would not be done. So I was producer or project manager, whatever you want. We got the design column, the programmer column, guy that made music, and the design column, right? Now this is on a bigger sense, in case you have like a bigger team, right? Might be cool to set up like a lead hierarchy. Again, I'm saying everyone has equal stature in this project, but if you want to get things done efficiently, some sort of structure would be beneficial, right? Where all three programmers of varying, for example, the programming caller, all three programmers of varying skills or varying skill levels reported to a lead who told them what to do and when to do it. So no one really stepped on toes, and the tech was all fine and dandy, right? And that lead told me about that, and I was like, all right, cool. So here's the next step. Here's the next step in high level, and it kind of like trickles down from there, right? That way, everyone who needs to know what they're doing knew what they were doing. Same with the artists. Lead artists got the idea and talked with the lead programmer on how that works, and then the more finer, grittier details trickled down to the people who are actually working on it. This is a way to work on organizing and managing a huge team. If you're in a smaller team, you're not really doing that. It's just, hey man, you're the artist, can you do this? You know what I mean? The difficulty of a project definitely ramps up with each person that you add to a project, right? So that's why having roles and a structure in some way for your team is highly, highly beneficial. CECS 343. I'm not citing the source. It's just that's the class you hear about it, right? There's definitely different ways to run a team. A lot of it is mentioned in that class, but for the most part, you got to have roles. Not gotta, but it's like highly, highly recommended. Let me go back. Cool. Roles. Shit's not work. Communication tools. All right. So, communication tools. Oh, I didn't get rid of the transitions. Progress tracking tools. Example. Oh, we'll go to that later. So, back on the Discord, if I can get to it. Back on the Discord. Oh man, I lost it. I left a ton of links on tools, right? So, it goes back to 343, but honestly, if you're working on a team or setting up, you kind of tell I'm losing steam here because I'm like, I have not eaten since like 11 a.m. But anyway, working on a team, taking notes, documentation, any of that stuff, right? It does help to have tools, right? Whether solo or working with a team or several people, you want to have a little task list for yourself. You got Trello, right? If I go back to, if you go here to Trello, right? We have this little like task board thing right here, right? You can go through this, give people tasks, assign them. See, I was given the garden level assembly. If you set up tasks and you write requirements, what is that? No, I don't want to say. What? What is that? All right. Dude, don't tempt me with a good time. Anyway, what's up?
Which of the tools do you recommend or have used?
Recommend and or have used? That's a good question. Let me pull up. No, spoiler. There it is. So, kind of a complex answer here. It really depends. Well, which one you use depends on what you're trying to go for, right? If you want simple task boards like this, right, where every time you click on it, you can see like a description. Oh, I do want to show this off. I hereby say everyone here has signed an NDA. Trello is something I really like working with for task tracking, right? I've been practicing this thing. I've been practicing my requirements documentation, where Jake is has never worked in Unity and doesn't know what to do, but he's willing to try anyway. I'm like, all right, Jake, here is your task. Here is your description, and here is your requirements of what to make, right? For task tracking, typically I like to use Trello or anything that simulates the same little task board type of thing where you can assign people. Like the main features are make a task, make a bucket of tasks, and then say whether it's like done, in progress, oh, I went backwards. Not started, in progress, done, or blocked. That's known as Kanban or Scrum, either or. This is my favorite tool right now because it's simple and you get 10 free members, I think, and 10 free boards. It's a weird model, honestly. If you could find like an offline version, that'd be pretty cool. But right now, this is a tool that I really like using for task management, right? Assigning people things and giving them descriptions of what they should do as a project manager has helped wonders. Jake just like, he goes on and on and on, and then Matt's about to go on too. When we eventually get to gameplay features and assets too, right? Trello for task tracking, I love it. Next thing is Miro is a whiteboard app. You can kind of see I use it as like an all-in-one. This is what my Kanban board looked like before. It's not really efficient, right? That's the guy holding the books. It wasn't efficient, but it got the idea through, right? Miro is sort of like a wild card. You can kind of use whatever you want and make whatever you want in here. I mean, honestly, the amount of diagramming I do in Miro alone, I just use it for every situation. Engineering, design, task tracking, whatever. It's, for some reason, bug reports. But if you want to get with your team and sort of like have them collaborate and visualize and make stuff and, you know, put sticky notes of my name everywhere and mess with me in the middle of it and just meme around. Like, this is a good app. Like, this is a really good app. It's free. It's free, and per account, you get 3 free boards, right? And by that, I mean after the 3rd board, any new one you make locks the past one. And the thing I don't like about it is I use my student account on it, and they still haven't said I'm a student, so I don't have all the cool features I want. But when it comes to making ideas or collaborating in some sense where everyone can just have a hand in making something, this is something I highly recommend. The link for it is in the semester resources, just letting you know. But I do recommend a whiteboard app or a collaborative drawing app or writing app that you and all your teammates can work on. What's up?
Is Miro free with our Cal State Long Beach?
No, I tried.
So what?
He asked, sorry, here, you want to repeat that? I realized I should have been throwing this around.
Is Miro free with our CSULB email?
Supposedly yes, but they never got back to me.
Okay.
I'm still waiting for my pro. Right. Thank you. Next tool. Oh, I have Trello. What else did I have? If you're going for solo, which I think I'm not going to ask for raise your hands because it's going to be all ambiguous again. But if you're going solo, Notion, and I also left a link for it in the Discord too, Notion and Obsidian, they are markdown-based note-taking apps. What that means is like you can just type and do cool things from just like characters by themselves. Like if you want to make a header, you put like £1 or hashtag, and it makes like a title. That was a small example, but Notion and Obsidian are powerful note-taking tools that will help you with setting up any kind of documentation or note-taking that you want. Let me pull up Obsidian. Try to make an effort to use something like Obsidian more. Bam. A lot of potential here where you can just take a bunch of notes, have a bunch of folders, and I can't show it off right now because I don't have anything set up yet, but Obsidian has this thing where it's like if you have relations or connections between pages, so for example, a player, an entity, player is like an entity and an entity is objects. If you wanted to make like graphs and stuff like that, like I showed in the last one or in the last workshop, Obsidian is capable of that. Notion, not so much. Again, for you computer scientists, Notion is more database related. So if you're making anything like with a lot of data or a lot of like specific columns, that's a good tool for it. Just letting you know if you're gonna go collaborative on Notion, after 1,000 words or whatever that you make, they start charging like $10 per person. So I'm just like, no, do not do that. Notion is entirely free, solo. And if you're going for storage, personal Discord server, I know Kieran does that, right? They just don't track how much you put in there. Yeah, so Trello, sometimes Notion, sometimes Obsidian, and Miro. Those are my favorite tools, just to answer your question. And for all of you, if you want links to this, they are in the Discord. Just giving you a heads up on that. Go back to the slideshow. What's next? What are we looking at? Example. Agile methodology. So, who's going to Beach Hacks? Who's going to a game jam, either online or in person? Who's in this club's game jam? Who's just going to make a game and balance it with the rest of the time? How have you not raised your hand? Okay, just making sure. All right. I was like, dude, you're the guy making games. How are you not? Okay. Anyway, the way to, okay, I'm going to open this with a question. Back to the project that I showed. How the hell do I manage making a game between 13 people in 4 days? That is a genuine question I asked, and my software engineer friend is just like, I'll just use Agile. And I'm like, what program is that? And that was already my first mistake. Agile is not a program. It is not a tangible thing, right? It is a structure. It is a method on how you do something, right? Much like this Fortnite example here, right? You have to start somewhere and work on a project iteratively, right? You need to make walking before you run. You make run before you jump. You make jump before you make Fortnite, right? I'm pretty sure building is somewhere in there, right? You can't just make all that in like one weekend, right? Looking at you. You can't just make all that in one weekend in a reasonable amount of time while balancing eating and sleeping and going to school and doing your chores and going to work and going to work and going to work and going to work and going to work. You just can't balance everything. So how do you do things in a way that doesn't apply a lot of pressure on you, right? And you won your team. Oh, I'm sorry, I just choked my spit for a second. Water break. Agile. Woo! Agile. So this is like one chapter or one lecture out of CECS 343, but I'm telling you it's the one that makes sense, and I'm going to show you next slide why. But what is it? It is just a methodology of 4 different categories. You have a backlog of tasks, you know. Boss says, here's everything. Uncategorized because I hate you. Here's everything. You start taking what you want to do for the week, and you put it in progress. You all work on it, and then you all meet again, and we're like, hey, what have we finished? We did tasks A through D, but everything afterwards got stuck because of a different issue. Locked and done. And it's like, okay, what are we doing next week? More tasks to each person, and you repeat the cycle over and over and over. Let's make walk. Here's all the stuff to do it. Did we make walk? Yes. Let's make run. Do it again. Let's make jump. Do it again. You make the game iteratively. You go little by little. And by then, you'll have a game. Doesn't matter how much time, or it doesn't matter what your time frame is. I've done 48 hours. I've done 96 hours. I've done a week. And I have done a semester long. And honestly, this still applies every time. It gets a little different with how much shorter time because you have less structure needed for smaller teams and smaller ranges of time. But if you all follow a structure and you follow like a format like Agile, you get a game done no matter what. Asterisk. You have to actually do it. And that's my whole reasoning for Agile methodology. It's just you work on it little by little. Right? You get things done little by little. No pressure on everybody. If you couldn't get it done, find out why. Ask for help. Do it again. And again and again and again. Another thing that helps with Agile is you start seeing all the cracks and all the fallbacks or all the unideal things come out of your project way before it happens. You know, how do we know everyone's gonna like 15 million wide Tetris? Because to me, that sounds like a great idea. But then when I make a prototype and we work on it and we test it at the meeting, everyone plays it and they're like, this is such a bad idea. And I'm like, all right, bring it down to 10. Next meeting. This is still such a bad idea. All right, bring it down to 4. Such a bad idea. You see what I mean? Like, you're all going to be like making this thing that you think is the greatest thing ever. Every meeting, once you actually get it done, you realize, damn, this doo-doo sucks, right? It just sucks. And so Agile also helps you see where you're going wrong and what the reality of your project is going to look like before it's even done. That's like the great part about it. How do we all know Fortnite was going to work, man? How do we all know? It's because they tried it over and over and over. Next one. So, the who. Who has used Agile? Okay, so I had to do some fact checking on myself to make sure I'm not being a butt. It's not explicitly mentioned that that's how KOTOR 2 and New Vegas were made, but there was rumors of like past developers mentioning a lot of Agile specific practices or Agile like practices. I mean, on God, making a whole game that's better than the first game twice in less than 2 years. How did you not use Agile? You had to have used it, man, come on. So these two, KOTOR 2, 14 months. New Vegas, 18 months. Those are really short time spans to make probably some of the best games ever made. In my opinion, honestly, go try them out if you haven't already. And those of you watching the current Fallout show right now, dude, we got everything. We did it. We got everything. These two, I believe, are decently good examples at running Agile. There's a lot of things that fall into the fray for there. But for the most part, if you're making something very complex and you need to get it done in a very short amount of time, everything I mentioned before is more or less the way to do it. You're going to hear about it in class for 343. You're going to hear about it in 491. You might hear some of our professors talk about it every now and then. This is relevant stuff, especially for making games, you know. Especially since if we go to HIO and we go to the game jams page, there's like a million game jams that they all range between like 2 days or 1 day or 15 hours all the way to like a year, I hope. So, I mean, just like the other month we had a 5-day game jam. I'm sorry I brought this up after that. My bad. But we had a 5-day game jam. If you ran something like Agile to organize how you're doing everything so that everyone has a specific amount of things to do and they have time to do homework and stuff, stuff like this works. Now I gotta give a shout out to Final Fantasy XIV, the reboot of it, right? In the semester resources, in all the links I gave, there is a link to a YouTube video or a YouTube documentary video covering the making of Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, right? I think that's the title. The highlight of that is that Final Fantasy XIV is a huge game, and they had a year to remake that huge game without anyone really noticing that the game was gone. How many of you played an MMO? It's huge, right? You're gonna make that in a year? How did they do it? In a very bad example of Agile. That's why I say good, bad example. For Final Fantasy XIV, You're gonna see in that video if you ever watch it on your own, but I'll tell it to you right now. For Final Fantasy XIV, they had a year to remake the game, the entire game, and so it got down to the point where everyone had their tasks, and when they came to report to the lead, like whether they'd finished their task or not, they also had to give how much time in minutes that they took to make it, and that would determine how much time you had in the next one, and that's like stress overload, right? I always find this as like an interesting story to Agile because it's just like I can't just be up here saying this is the best thing ever. You know, that's what Todd Howard does, and then we find Fallout 76, right? You can't just be up here and say this is the best thing ever. There has to be a counter argument. So Final Fantasy is a counter argument that I have to that. Agile is so good, in my opinion, for game jams and small or short, tight deadlines. But at the same time, if you're not really cool about it and you do it the wrong way, you get it done, and all your employees probably hate you. You know, some people will work in 50-hour weeks, and they're like, it's fine. Haven't seen my kids in like 2 months. That's fine. It's not fine, right? So I do recommend looking into, finding your favorite video game, or your favorite indie game, your favorite AAA game that was made in a year, and just find out how it was made. How long did it take to make it? For a person I was planning to work with, he wanted to make a successor to Doki Doki Literature Club and Nisai. So I think this guy likes anime. I think. And when I tried working with him, he was like, yeah, I have a $20,000 budget. I want to make it in 3 years. By the 3rd year, I want Japanese voice actors. And I'm like, do you know how long Nisai took? Those are just 2 guys. It took 2 years, filed bankruptcy, borrowed a lot of money from their families, lost their homes, to make anime game. And honestly, if that stuff didn't work, like, oh my God, they were dead. Honestly, they were dead. Like living on the streets kind of dead, you know? So just know the good examples and bad examples and go into some research on how your favorite games are made and see why they succeeded. It's a really valuable lesson to look into these things. One of the first lessons for game development is go play other games. I wish I could do that. Go play other games, right, and see how they work. But another layer of that, if you're really serious about making games or you're really serious about learning things about making software of any kind, go do some studying and find out how your favorite games are made. And that's what this slide is saying. As far as I know, Kieran made this in like a weekend. And I think, okay. 3 months. A weekend. But you can do it in a weekend now, right?
Oh, I could have done it in a weekend then too, yeah.
Let's go. You can do it. You can do it. So, this is just a repeat of tools. Again, in the semester resources. But here are a bunch of tools you could use for, I think this is a redundant slide, because honestly, these are all the same. My bad, guys. New thing though, if you're trying to set up schedules with your teams, when to meet and setting up Google Calendar, very useful. It's great to know when everyone's free and able to work on their projects, and it also sucks to know that someone is busy every single day except for like 2 to 4 p.m. or 2 to 4 a.m. every day. But this is where you all find it out. What's up?
How effective is the Stone tablet and chisel for meeting notes?
There's a lot of latency. Kieran has an answer for you. I honestly didn't have an answer for you.
So, in the Bible, when Moses has a meeting with God, right? We still use those notes, just saying.
Yeah. Can you, real quick, can you imagine if, like, the next iteration of, like, the gospel was in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and that shit wasn't found for, like, several years, and so someone was just like, where's my update? And someone just left it in a cave for, like, hundreds of years. And you finally read it, and it's just like, I don't even know what language that is anymore. So, probably not effective. Probably not. What is crunch? What is crunch? This is a big thing, right? So, in project management, and I swear to you we're almost done, I swear to you. This is the last thing to talk about, crunch time. So if we don't have enough time to do our thing, right? here is why we should be on top of it. What are the things that we can't avoid in making a project? Bugs and life issues. Dude, if I was in the ER, there's no way I'm making that script. Unless I just tell the doctors, hey, can I get my laptop real quick? Right? So there are things that are unavoidable. Do not discount that. Take into account when you're planning a weekend to do a game jam, or when you're planning a week to make a game, right? Do not discount the fact that you are busy. You have to be honest with yourself. Hey, I'm going to make this game. I'm going to do this thing. But I'm genuinely not free. Don't be like me and don't tell everybody that you think you have time and then you don't. Because it really leads to like a lot of a lack of punctuality and getting things done, right? Things that are avoidable are improper time management. They're all listed here. You know, the biggest thing here is bloated scope. You all agree on an idea that's way too big. Good luck, right? These are all avoidable things you could do, and you are in control. You're absolutely in control of. So when it comes to project management, whether you are the one planning it or you're solo, or you're the one following it, if you can honestly and reasonably give your time and accountability to your other teammates or to yourself, you avoid things like crunch time. You avoid procrastination. I know everyone's doing that for school right now. I'm doing it right now. You avoid procrastination, and you avoid a lot of stress coming up, especially when the due date, the soft due date for the game jam is a week before, and the hard due date is launch day. Is it avoidable? I didn't write the slide. I don't remember why. Thank you. So, my hand is very warm. Thank you for this. You guys got questions? If you get the bear, you talk.
You're next to me.
When making or when deciding on the concept of a game, how? I'm trying to think of a way to ask this question.
Take your time.
How do you decide when the scope for a game is too large or is feasible within like a time frame?
Initially, it's very hard to tell. Initially. That is something you start noticing by experience, right? Someone who's never programmed a game is like, I could just make a game and then stuff through it, right? But someone who's done enough games is going to look at a feature. So it's like, oh, I want to be able to run in this way. Like someone who's done it before or has relevant experience could just look at it and be like, that is possible, or that is not possible. You get it with the experience. But going back to Agile, if you do things iteratively, right? If you do little by little and go by tasks, you're going to start seeing what fits and what doesn't. That's why we got like 1,000 videos of like, Dark Souls 2 cut content. What is this room in the back of, I don't know my niche topics anymore, but there's a lot of games, there's a lot of video essays talking about like cut content, lost content. Oh my god, secrets never resolved in video games. That's just because they ran out of time. The scope was too big, and as they were developing it, they chopped it down. Good answer?
Yeah.
Cool. Next.
How easy is it to implement GitHub into Unity for like sharing projects across people?
Does everyone know how to use GitHub? Yeah? Like, in your project, do they all know?
Well, I haven't used it in like Unity, so like, is it like difficult to like, implement it in?
It is. It's not hard. It's weird. I'll pull it up right now, real quick. Game progress. Okay, don't do that, I guess. Game progress. Sorry, I got a folder for you. It's right here. So all these are Unity projects, right? So we open up this one. Oh, that's a build, my bad. So if we open up this one, right? That's got to be bigger. My bad. So this is the entire folder. Let's say you open up Unity in the Unity Hub. Oh no, let's say you open up and make a project in the Unity Hub. It spawns all of these files except for gitignore and the invisible.git, right? Someone who knows better. You guys tell me now, because I'm going to start. Okay, so what I usually do is I make the repository in GitHub, right? And then I make the project. I clone the repository, and then I move all the project files into the repository. And then I tell my Unity hub that is where the project lives now. And the way for you to know that it's in GitHub is the git ignore. GitHub has a template for Unity files, and that's in this git ignore, so you can use that template. And the invisible .git folder that's somewhere in. So pretty sure there's probably a better way to do that, but that's how I set up Unity with GitHub. If you need like a more hands-on thing, feel free to reach out to me after this. Cool? Questions?
What do you do if in the middle of one project you sort of just have another idea? Is there a way, like what do you recommend?
If you have another idea, like is it like an idea relevant to the project or a completely different
Say
idea?
you were thinking about making a game that only has like 4 major areas, and then all of a sudden you think, maybe you can make like one more area, but it's already halfway done, and or it's pretty difficult to go back on, or you just need to make a major change.
So for a major change, so for something like a major change, and you want to okay. Wait. So when you're making a project and any other? Give him the bear.
I was curious about the same question.
Should we wait for him or should we? You down to wait for him or not? You leaving soon?
Nobody talks until he comes back.
Okay, I can answer. I can answer. Oh, I can definitely answer. All right, real quick. We were memeing a lot, so I might have forgotten the question. Can I have the question again? A major change, right? So, if there is a major change in the direction of your guys' project, first off, pitch it to everybody. Hey, I think we should have this feature. You should have this huge feature. And the first thing you guys got to do is assess how realistic is it. You know, like the approaches that I'm seeing for this one is if you have 4 areas and you want to add a 5th area, it probably sounds impossible from afar because it's just like, ooh, boom, right? There's a lot to implement with that new area. But you could also consider, if your engineers are cool about it, right? You could also consider that a lot of reused things in the other 4 levels will be used in that level, which expedites its existence, right? So you kind of have to take it from like a top level perspective and be like, okay, how many new things does this level introduce? Or how many new things does this feature introduce? If it introduces a lot, then it doesn't, you know, it's probably not worth it at that point, right? It also depends on your time frame. If your time frame is very short and you want to add something that took a lot of time, like say for example, let's give a little bit of statistics here. Level 1 took like 40 hours to make, level 2 took 30, level 3 took 30, level 4 took 20, but level 4 is like a secret level, right? So from an objective standpoint right there, you kind of have to gauge how much time it's going to take to make that next level. And also at the same time consider, do you have enough time in your timeline or your time frame to go through with that? A lot of the times it's just easier to say no, right? But then someone's idea just goes out the way, and that sucks. So from there, like I was saying, with compromise or solving disputes, if you can come to a compromise and be like, hey, well, I want some things from that level to appear in the main game, cool. There's a compromise. You have something, and then some YouTuber is going to go on your game and be like, here's these secret characters that only show up on the corner of the map. Was this alluding to another DLC or another level? Cut content number 347, right? It's stuff like that. Stuff happens like that where someone wants to add an entire thing, but in order to find compromise, they chop it down little by little to have their ideas shown, to show something is going to happen. And it's a fork from there. Either you have time, you make it, or you don't have time, you don't make it. Is that a good answer? What's up?
In the in like the agile structure where it had like backlog and progress done and blocked, how large of a task would you assign like to like how large of a task would you put into in the in progress section?
I'm so glad I had time to do this. Jake, I want you to make scene management. How large of a task is this? It is. You make one script that allows you to change functions. You make one graphical scene that kind of curtains it out. And you make the actual loading screen where things are going back and forth and changing. So this is my example of a doable task or a realistic task where it just covers one thing. So to answer your question is, how big of a task do you put into in progress? It really depends on how little you can reduce a string of tasks, right? Or how little you can reduce a big task into small little tasks. And also, can the person you're assigning it to realistically do it? If I didn't think Jake could do this, I was going to break it down even more, right? It's more of it's a give and take thing, right? I give you this, you can't do it. I take it back, break it down. I give you a smaller bit, can you do it? Over and over and over till he can do it, and then he starts working his way up there, right? So how you give someone a task or how you decide a task will be in progress, honestly, it constantly changes, but if you can like make it realistic within the time frame between each of your meetings, then that would be a good, realistic task. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Cool. Sorry. Anyway, again, I am Justin Dela Cruz, or Fru on the VGA channel. I'm not gonna lie to you, I barely talk in that channel. But if you at me or DM me, that's completely okay. You can come talk to me. Come talk to any one of us. Matt is Godot. I am Unity. Jake is Godot. Anna is Renpai. Cherry is RPG Unity and RPG Maker 2002.
I've used MV and MZ.
Cherry is jack of all trades. Ask questions. You got Garrett for just 2D. You got Jomar for Unity and 2D. What's up, Sean? What's up, man? He's Godot. He's not an officer, but you know he just shows up a lot, so he's technically an officer. Yeah. Once again, I'm Justin, and you can ask me anything regarding this. What's up? My bad, Kieran. My bad. That's Kieran. Unity, Godot, Blender, Deltarune. I'm so sorry. I was like, we're all like bunched up around here. What's up? Never mind. My bad. But there's Kieran too. Honestly, I think the strongest people who can answer your questions in detail, the four of us, right? Kieran, Matt, me, Garrett. And yeah, we all have our different specific skills, right? So whoever you ask for certain ones, we can always redirect you to whichever is most effective. All right. Any last questions? I'm going to stop the recording.
Who do I give the bear to?
Got it.